All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is McKenna Sturgeon. I'm the Training and Marketing Specialist for the Colorado Municipal League. I'd like to welcome you to our first 2022 Statehouse Report webinar. Today, CML's advocacy team will be providing updates on important developments at the state capitol. Just so you all know, this webinar will be recorded and available to view next week. We'll have it on our website, as well as send it around with the Statehouse Report, our print weekly edition. So if you'd like to subscribe to that, you can go ahead and do so at cml.org. That's going to be done by hovering over the Publications and News tab, then clicking on the Periodical Subscription Request button in the third column. So if you have questions, please feel free to reach out and we can help out with that. So now just to kind of give you a heads up on GoToWebinar, if you're new here, you're going to have a control panel on your right. That's where you can go ahead and ask questions. I'll be checking those throughout the webinar, and then we'll answer those questions at the end. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Heather to go ahead and get us started.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Heather Stauffer, Legislative and Policy Advocate for CML. Today, you're going to hear from each of the CML lobbyists, myself, Megan McKillop, and Jacqueline Turway, and our Executive Director, Kevin Baumer, on bills which we're working on. So if you have any questions for us about bills outside of this weekly Statehouse report, outside of the printed weekly Statehouse report and the bi-weekly webinar, please don't hesitate to reach out to any one of us on the advocacy team. We're more than happy to help. And you can find our contact information on CML's website, cml.org. So we're finishing up the second full week of the legislative session. As of yesterday, there have been around 227 bills introduced. CML is currently following about 131 of them, and there are a lot more to come. So with that, I'll turn it over to our Executive Director, Kevin Baumer, who's filling in today for Megan Dollar to talk about some bills. So take it away, Kevin.
I'm pinch hitting, so you're getting the B team here on Megan's bills, but thanks, Heather. Try and keep this pretty quick. I have 4 items to cover. The first is housing related affordable housing tax credit, which is House Bill 1051. This will be in the House Transportation and Local Government Committee on Wednesday. The legislation is about the state affordable housing and tax credit created several years ago and run by the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority, with which we've had a very long relationship with. It's very successful. It continues to have more applicants than recipients, and currently CHAFA can allocate income tax credits up to about $10 million beginning on January 1, 2020 and ending on December 31st, 2024. The bill, House Bill 1051, actually extends that period to 2034 and increases the cap, aggregate cap, to $15 million. Staff had recommended to the CML board to support the legislation. The CML board, which met just before this, affirmed that recommendation. So CML is officially supporting the bill. Next bill in the land use category is the Property Ownership and Fairness Act, Senate Bill 22063. It's scheduled for committee, Senate State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee. So I'm not going to talk about it for very long, maybe just a little bit longer than the bill lasts in Senate State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee on the 8th. But it's essentially a redo of Amendment 74, which CML vehemently opposed and was defeated at the ballot a few years ago. I'm just going to leave it at that. It's a massive preemption. It's not going to live very long. We have an official opposed position on the bill, and if you want to read more details, you can refer to the Statehouse report or our list of bills in case you want to help write its postmortem after it dies. The last introduced bill that I'll speak about is also in House Transportation and Local Government on Wednesday, February 2nd. This is legislation that purports to preempt Home Rule Sales Tax Authority by requiring home rule municipalities to exempt the use tax on public construction materials. CML did survey our members, and we found that only a handful, actually 3 municipalities, actually still impose this tax, but the league is opposed to the legislation, and I want to make sure it's on everyone else's radar screen, because while this particular preemption, if it passes, if it's signed into law, and if it withstands a most certain legal challenge that would come afterwards, since it cuts to the heart of home rule authority over local tax base, I want to encourage every municipality that is home rule and cares about preserving your home rule authority over your tax base to weigh in with your legislators on this one, because while this one may say public school construction taxes need to be exempt, next year or later this year or whenever, someone may actually introduce a preemption and try to force a home rule municipality to exempt something bigger, something that everyone cares about. So it's important to stand up for the principle of home rule authority, local control, preservation of local tax bases as a matter of local and municipal concern, and frankly tell the state to butt out. This is a very hyper local issue with one sponsor who's got an issue with one municipality, which she used to be a council member on and we know her and love her, but she's way off base on this one. I encourage you to, if whether you have a member on House Transportation and Local Government or not, encourage your House members to oppose House Bill 1024 and let the state worry about its own exemptions, tell them to stay out of local government. The other item I'm going to talk about is a bill that has not been introduced, but we still expect to be introduced. I have no idea in what form it will be. It's actually brought me out of lobbyist retirement to work on along with Megan, and that is the much anticipated public sector mandated collective bargaining bill. Now, just to be clear at the get-go, again, the league's position on this, it wouldn't matter if it was prohibiting collective bargaining, which we've opposed in the past, or mandating collective bargaining, which we've opposed in the past, and we oppose this legislation. The state doesn't, for home rule municipalities, and shouldn't for any public entity, be dictating employment matters beyond its own at the state level. So the most recent news on this is the governor came out and spoke against the version that we had seen in draft form, saying he did not support that version. Begs the question, what version would he support? So how much help are we going to get there? But he also had a very cryptic message that he believed it was necessary to engage local governments more early in the process. I don't know what that means, but I will say that the last direct conversation officially that the league had with proponents was in November, and with the sponsors was in early December. So it's very much a mystery right now. What I can say is there's a very significant coalition that's assembled to oppose this bill, no matter what it purports to try to do in terms of a state mandate on local government employment matters, because it is truly a matter of local control and home rule concern for home rule municipalities. This coalition that we met yesterday and affirmed a strategy going forward will be drafting some language to sign on to. It includes K through 12 schools. It includes, will include higher education and multiple other entities that are affected, special districts, and hopefully at some point our colleagues over at the counties. I do know that the Colorado commissioners acting together, CCAT, they've approached it a little bit differently. They've indicated to the sponsors based on the draft that they would like to see amendments in order to not oppose the bill or perhaps support the bill. Not quite as sure on that one, but that's sort of outside of where the rest of the local governments and schools appear to be going. So that's all I have to say about that. We're anxiously awaiting the opportunity to talk to the proponents and sponsors. I think they're aware of the position that the league has, that doesn't matter what they do, we're going to oppose it. So maybe that's why we're not hearing from them, and perhaps seeing a bill introduced and February, March. That's it for me. Thanks, Heather.
Megan McKillop, why don't you go next?
All righty. Thanks, Heather, and thanks, Kevin, for joining us. What a treat. So I want to start with a few bills.
Do you really mean that, or are you just pulling my leg?
No, I really mean that. First, I'm going to start off with a bill that's going to be heard in House Judiciary next week. House Bill 1067 would make some clarifying changes about bond hearings. Specifically, would make municipal courts hold a bond hearing for a person who's been detained within 48 hours after the person arrives at the jail. We've been working really closely with the sponsors of this bill, Representative Woodrow and Representative Gonzalez Gutierrez in the House, and I believe Senator Lee in the Senate. So we've been working very closely with them and making some changes to the bill that would make it a little bit easier for our municipalities to comply. One of those changes would be to clarify that a bail hearing would be held within 48 hours of that the court receives notice that a person has been detained. A couple other clarifications surrounding circumstances that are out of the court's control. And I think really importantly, extending the effective date of this piece of legislation to next year. So we make sure that our members don't have to come up with money in the middle of their budget year. So with the passage of those changes to the bill, CML will be neutral on House Bill 1067. And again, that is being heard next week, Wednesday, February 2nd in House Judiciary. Moving right along, another bill that's being heard early February is House Bill 1020. That's being heard in Energy and Environment on Thursday, February 3rd. And we are opposing this bill. It's a reincarnation of a bill that was introduced last year. It prohibits a local government municipality from limiting or prohibiting the use of natural gas or renewable energies for electricity generation. And those renewable energy would include solar energy, hydro, and wind energy. And that would be for cooking, so your stovetop, space heating, air conditioning, kind of the whole gambit. And that would prohibit local governments from passing ordinances regarding those energies in residences or businesses. So it strips local control from us, and CML is vehemently opposed to that bill, and we'll be testifying to that effect on Thursday, February 3rd. The next bill is House Bill 1080, another reincarnation of a bill from last year, but in a pretty different form. This bill will be heard in Transportation and Local Government on Tuesday, February 8th. It would require local governments that wish to begin using automated vehicle identification systems to submit that matter to voters in a general election. The bill also gives drivers who have been assessed a penalty from using these systems. So if you get a ticket from running a red light at a traffic intersection, you would be able to pay that assessed penalty by donating to a nonprofit. And the bill lists eligible nonprofits in the bill. We find there's going to be a negative fiscal impact to local governments in two ways. First, just the cost of holding an election for something that is already within powers of local governments and the democratically elected legislative body. And second, through diverting funds to a nonprofit that would normally go to cost of operating these kinds of systems. There would be, cost implications there. So we're testifying in opposition on this bill Thursday, February 8th. The last thing I'm going to talk about, Tuesday, February 8th. The last bill I'm going to talk about is Senate Bill 16, which is going to be in Senate Transportation and Energy on Tuesday, February 8th. This would drastically change the composition of the Transportation Commission. The membership of the commission is currently 11 members appointed by the governor with the consent of the Senate. And this bill would change that to, so the commission would be decided by the congressional districts. So it would move from 11 members to 9 members to be elected at the next election, the November 24th general election. It would drastically reduce representation on the commission, especially in the West Slope, where representation on the commission would shrink to 1 member from 3. And beginning February 1st of 2025, the commission would be required to select the executive director of the Department of Transportation. Currently, the director is appointed by the governor. And it's our belief that this would unduly politicize the Transportation Commission, who does great work for our regional partners, municipal and county partners. So we are going to testify in opposition. Happy to answer any questions on those when the time comes, but that is it for me.
All right, Jacqueline, go ahead.
Great. So I just have a couple of bills that are coming up over the next week. So 1013 is the microgrids for community resilience grant program. That is going to be in committee on Wednesday, February 2nd. So we will be testifying in support in the House Energy and Environment Committee. Again, that's one that allows municipal utilities and rural electric cooperatives to apply for grants for microgrids to help in severe weather events. The microgrids would be islanded from the rest of the electric grid to be able to provide support and provide electricity in severe weather events. The other one would be 1035, House Bill 1035, which is the modernization of the Older Coloradans Act. We have been participating on the task force monthly on this one. This bill just expands the task force and also provides for local government representation to be able to provide services and things for older Coloradans to age in place. So we think this is an important thing to be supporting to keep our older Coloradans in their cities and towns that they still live in and make sure that they have the services that they need to do that. So we are supportive of that one. That is in committee on Friday, February 4th in the Public and Behavioral Health Committee. And then the last one is House Bill 1093, which it's the updates to the bingo and raffle law, which we just in our board committee just took an opposed position to. This one updates the bingo and raffle law to expand outside of what was determined in the Colorado Constitution. It includes more of the slot machines, and it just makes it a little bit outside of the scope of what the Constitution allows in those gaming towns. So in support of our gaming towns, we are also opposing that legislation. That's going to be up on Thursday in the House Business Affairs and Labor Committee. So that's what we're working on.
All right, thanks, Jacqueline. I'll start off, and I want to talk about a few wildfire related bills. So House Bill 1011, this is wildfire mitigation incentives for local governments. This is a bill that CML is supporting, and it creates a grant program to provide matching funds to municipalities who raise dedicated revenue for forest management and wildfire mitigation activities. Currently, dedicated revenue is limited to things like a dedicated sales tax. However, after talking with the sponsors, they are going to be amending the bill to expand the definition of what is a dedicated revenue to allow for things like a program that has been going on for a long time in a municipality that uses general funds or something like that, so that more municipalities can take advantage of those matching funds, which is great. So we will be testifying in support of this bill on Wednesday, February 9th in the House Energy and Environment Committee. The other bill I want to quickly talk about is House Bill 1012, Wildfire Mitigation and Recovery. The language of this bill creates another wildfire mitigation and recovery grant program, but it only applies to counties currently. I spoke to the sponsor of this bill, and they would like to significantly change that bill so that the funding would actually just roll over into the furworm grants, and that's fire recovery. Oh, I'm totally forgetting what the actual acronym stands for. I apologize, but that's those are grants that municipalities can take advantage of and are currently eligible to receive funding from. So I haven't seen the amendment language there. We are in a support if amended position on that. So that is also being heard on Wednesday, February 9th in the House Energy and Environment Committee. The other two wildfire bills we're going to see in the next 2 weeks. This is Senate Bill 2, Resources for Volunteer Firefighters. CML is supporting this bill. It extends cash funds to fire departments that are primarily staffed by volunteer firefighters. So we are supporting that bill. That'll be heard in the Senate Local Government Committee on February 1st, and we'll be there to testify in support of that. I have no worries about that bill getting through. And then House Bill 1007, which is Assistance Landowner Wildfire Mitigation, which establishes a grant program for local governments to provide outreach to landowners about mitigation programs within the local government. So we're going to support that bill as well. That will also be heard on Wednesday, February 9th in the House Energy and Environment Committee. So February 9th is going to be a very wildfire heavy day in the House Energy and Environment Committee. The other bill that I just wanted to mention, special districts bills. House Bill 1097, the dissolution of special districts. So municipalities currently already have the power to file for an application of dissolution of a special district. This bill would extend that power to counties as well. We've asked CCI for an amendment to this bill that would make clear that a special district that is 85% contained within the borders of a municipality, they need to get the consent of the municipality to file for an application of dissolution. So they have agreed to that amendment. That will go on Tuesday, February 8th in the Transportation and Local Government Committee. And with that amendment, we will be supporting that bill. The other bill, special districts wise, that I wanted to talk about was Senate Bill 4. This is evidence-based training in the science of reading. So we're an oppose unless amended on this bill. And the bill requires public librarians, among other K through 3 teachers, I believe, to complete training in the evidence-based training of science, and in the science of readings, rather. So municipal librarians are concerned that the requirements of the bill, primarily because, you know, librarians support literacy, however, they are not reading teachers, and they feel that the requirements of the bill are really out of the scope of what public libraries are set up to do. So we are going to be opposing this unless libraries are taken out of the bill, or if they change that to an opt-in provision. So that's going to be heard on Thursday, February 10th in the Senate Education Committee, and we're currently working with the sponsors to try to find a path forward on that. The last bill that I will mention is Senate Bill 37. This is the Tony Gramscis Youth Services Program. This bill just makes some changes to the Tony Gramscis Youth Services Program, which a lot of municipalities work with, and it expands the services from solely intervention-based to prevention-based. It includes intervention and prevention, rather. So we're supporting that bill, and we're going to testify in support of that on Wednesday, February 2nd in the Senate Education Committee. And that's all I have. So I think, McKenna, we can take questions whenever you're ready.
Great. I think we just had one question today. So Megan, this is for you. Could you please repeat the bill number for the first bill that you talked about for natural gas stoves, etc.?
Sure. So the first bill that I mentioned was House Bill 1067, which is municipal courts. But in relation to natural gas, the prohibition of cities regulating natural gas in new homes and businesses is House Bill 1020. And that's being sponsored by Representative Woog and Senator Kirkmeyer.
Awesome. Thank you. We had one more come in. So what is the bill number for the special district dissolution item?
That's House Bill 1097.
Well, yep, that's all the question we had for today. So Everyone feel free to follow up with questions too as they come in. We're happy to get those answered for you. So just to kind of close us off, thank you so much for attending. We really appreciate your time. And if you would like to stay up to date on legislative happenings throughout the session, make sure you sign up for our future State House Report webinars. The next one will be taking place February 11th at 12 p.m. So not next week, but the following. Also, please make sure that you register for our legislative workshop. This is also a great way to stay informed. That's taking place on February 17th at History Colorado. You can find more information about that at cml.org. Do you guys have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, just one thing. If you guys want to see a recording of this, you can find this on the Advocacy and Legal page on cml.org under the State House Report.
Perfect. Oh, Heather, we had one more final question. Can I give you that? Sorry. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on Senate Bill 023?
I think that's one of Megan's that was discussed in the board today.
I'm happy to take this one.
Yeah, sorry. That's the Deceptive Tactics Juvenile Custodian Interrogation. I had to look up what it was.
Yeah, same here. I was scrambling. So this legislation was discussed by the CML board today. The board president appointed earlier last year, a special committee on policing, which is made up of a couple of board members, police legal advisors, municipal judge, and others. So some expertise to help interpret and guide staff's recommendations to the board and assist the board's deliberations. The staff recommendation was to oppose the bill unless it was amended. There's a couple of items in there related to some hyper-specific details I know Megan will include in her write-up, but we are seeking amendments and to help reduce potential liability issues. But other than that, if we get those amendments, the league would drop opposition to the bill. And again, it's fairly specific what we're asking for.
Awesome.
Let's just wait a second, see if that answers the question or if more detail is requested.
While we wait to see if that one does, we had a couple more come in as you were speaking.
Good.
Go through those. So Kevin, this one's probably for you. I think this was spurred by the legislative workshop comment. What are the COVID rules in Denver for meeting?
Well, right now it's indoor mask requirements and that, but I'll tell you what, rather than say what it's going to be right now, what we're going to do is, as we get a little bit closer, if nothing, we'll be letting folks know what what the requirements are, and ultimately, if we have to change the meeting to virtual, which we will decide later on. But right now, the public health order requires indoor mask wearing, and so we would comply with that. The exceptions obviously are eating and drinking, which we do provide food and beverage for at least part of the workshop. And with that too, then our legislative reception that we have immediately afterwards, or almost immediately afterwards at CML, and we would follow the same guidelines there as per the Denver Public Health Order.
Awesome, thank you. And then one more couple more. All right, so we'll go back to deceptive tactics really quick. What specific amendments are you seeking?
Yeah, boy, I wish Megan was here. So, and feel free to help me out, team.
Yeah, I think Megan McKillop probably can help a little bit since she was on that meeting.
Yeah, so without remembering every detail, we're just seeking to narrow the scope of when this bill would apply to interrogations. The current language is just fairly broad, and that gave us a little concern. So I don't have the exact language, but feel free to email me and Megan Dollar, and we can respond to you more directly with the exact language that we're seeking.
Let me do this just for clarity. I will, or at least some clarity. I will read the summary which we provided to the board, for which the recommendation was approved, and maybe that will be helpful. And some of this is already will be included in the write-up on in Statehouse report. But here's what we provided to the board. Senate Bill 23 prohibits a law enforcement officer or an agent who assists, cooperates with, or otherwise facilitates a custodial interrogation with a juvenile from using deception and false facts or beliefs to obtain a statement or admission from the juvenile. Any statement or admission obtained during the course of a juvenile custodial interrogation in which a law enforcement officer knowingly uses deception or is presumptively inadmissible rather, against the juvenile in an evidentiary hearing unless the prosecution proves by clear and convincing evidence that a statement or admission was made voluntarily. The bill requires law enforcement officials to electronically record all juvenile custodial interrogations. CML believes that transparency is important. However, the bill is both broad and in its application and vague. The CML Committee on Policing has recommended seeking amendments to narrow its application. So, one of the amendments that was discussed today, or one of the issues that was discussed today, was sort of flips the script, and if the interviewee believes that they were deceived, then that can cause something to become inadmissible. And again, words matter, and at this point, we want to make sure that the words are crystal clear, not necessarily opposed to overall to what's being attempted to achieve by the proponents, but there are some aspects that would narrow in Colorado law beyond what is constitutionally, what the constitutional limits are now. So more to come, and probably by the time in 2 weeks we do this next report, we'll have Megan back and a better response on first of all the specific amendments and how they were received by the proponents.
Awesome, thank you. I think we just had one more come through. When will House Bill 1024 be heard?
That one's being heard on Wednesday, February 2nd, in House Transportation and Local Government, 1:30 p.m. It is second on the calendar at this point.
Perfect, thank you. Well, it looks like that is all the questions we have. So again, thank you everyone for joining. If you're looking for this recording, you can find it on our website on the advocacy page. You can also find it in the Statehouse report that will go out next week. And if you have not subscribed to that, you're able to do so on our website as well. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a great afternoon.
Have a great weekend.